Hello, everyone. We are here on the Ricky Williams Show with a guest that I love. Lucian, thank you for being here. Um, and we are here to talk about counseling and skills in astrology. So, just so Ricky can meet you, Lucian, tell us what you do for a living.
I am a psychotherapist by day and an astrologer by night. Um, I also do something called family constellation work, which is, somewhat psychotherapeutic, but it's also in the woo-woo arts.
Nice. So I thought since you're a counselor, I thought we could talk about just some people say, let me ask this question to you guys first. Do you think that astrologers are counselors?
I think counseling astrologers are counselors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you know one's a counseling astrologer?
Well, I mean, let me give you an example. So, I come from the sports world, and we have counselors and we have coaches, and they're different. And so, I think someone can be a coaching type of astrologer, and I'm not limiting it to counseling or coaching. I think there can be a lot of different ways that people utilize astrology in interacting with other people.
Okay. So a counseling astrologer is maybe somebody who uses astrology to counsel people, whereas I guess a coach would be more of a directive astrologer.
I'm using that as an example that there might be an assumption that because a lot of astrology is cased in psychology that if we're astrologers that we can only use astrology in a counseling context, and so that puts kind of limitations to me on how someone can utilize astrology.
Mm.
So what do you think, Lucian? Do you think or astrologers are counselors?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the definition gets, like in the soft professions, right? Like, there are coaches out there who are doing really deep healing work with people, right? Or, I mean, I certainly think people go to astrologers seeking counsel, right? Um, I don't think astrology is necessarily like psychotherapy, right? Or that should be maybe distinguished. But I think all these things get right. Like it used to be that doctors were psychotherapists and alchemists and astrologers and metaphysicians, right? It's like only in the last 400 years that we've like separated all these things out into sort of specialties. But yeah, I definitely think people go to astrologers for similar reasons that people seek therapy or seek counseling, right? Normally there's some sort of issue in their life and they're seeking guidance around that, you know.
But this is, to me, this is like, I guess what I'm saying is I feel like if you hold up a mirror, is that giving someone guidance? Is that counseling?
Well, okay, so I'm going to go on a limb and say that I don't think astrologers are counselors. I think they're more like consultants
Uh-huh.
because we use data in what we're doing. Does that, I mean, what do you guys think of that idea?
I have to say I'm noticing I am super sensitive to Uranus. And so my perspective is I believe that astrologers, I believe and I hope that astrologers are a dying breed. Because I don't think that someone can tell you about yourself, or anyone can know you better than you can know yourself. And so for me, and my utopian ideal is if everyone understands some astrology, that no other astrologer can, maybe they can have a conversation and give them insight, but you become your own counselor.
Yeah.
Or I should say, you can counsel yourself in a way that no one else can. I think that's a better way to say it.
I think that astrology is the most exciting when you speak, when you can understand the language of astrology and engage it like in your life, you know.
Yes.
That is the idea. And it's also, I mean, I also love getting astrology readings from other astrologers because I always learn something or see something in a different light. You know, I did a reading with Andrea like last year or something like that, and I was complaining about, you know, that I'm too busy, I'm working all the time, you know, life's overwhelming. And she was like, "Oh, well, your son's in the 6th house, so you're always going to be, life's always going to be a chore, you know. But it should be, you know, hopefully it can be the chores you want to do. But yeah, you're not going to, like, life's not going to be a vacation on a beach in Hawaii."
Yeah.
But, you know, and I've been looking at that 6th house sun for 20 years or something. And yeah, so anyway, there's a magic that happens when, you know, one or more, two or more are gathered, right? Like,
yeah. Yes, 100%. I 100% agree. But my thing is the counseling piece. Because if we're gathered and we're able to speak the language and share our experiences, we're all empowered through that exchange. And I think the counseling thing, at least the way I experience most people interacting with it, it's a deficit mindset. It's always about what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. And I understand that's our training, and that's the way we believe we get better, is by finding out what's wrong with us and doing something about it. But I don't hold that belief. I believe that we're all in the process of becoming, and if we focus on becoming what we're becoming, then this idea of what's wrong with me, well, it doesn't even make sense anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I'm with you, Ricky. Like, my passion is actually training people to read their own charts. Like, the idea that we should be having a power differential and being like the one who holds someone's chart is a kind of deficit factor in their development of becoming themselves. Like, I think in a utopian society, all people would learn to watch transits, just like people learn to tell time at the age of 5. Maybe at the age of 21, you learn to watch transits, and then you'd be watching your own transits and developing your own chart, co-creating with the planets. And I actually think that's a cool idea.
I mean, that's, you know, understanding astrology, I always tell people, it's literally like you have some archetypal clock on your wall that tells you about your own becoming, and also about the timing of these transits or these triggers. So I spend a lot more time thinking about what astrology has to offer psychotherapy and counseling than I have really about, you know, what do astrologers need to learn from counseling. Yeah,
it's interesting you say has to offer. In my understanding, astrology is ruled by Uranus and Aquarius. And so if I think of it, something Uranus or Aquarius has something to offer, it's to radically change something. So, you know, and I think that's what I'm talking about, is at least in my evolutionary developmental astrological mindset, is we're all in the process of becoming. And we say that, But if we truly believed it, then we wouldn't get stuck in what's wrong with me anymore. You know, is that we would revel in the ideas of what's wrong with us, because that's the path towards becoming.
Yeah.
But I never thought of that. Sorry.
You go ahead.
I've never thought of that, Ricky, that counseling assumes that there's something wrong, which it kind of does. I don't get to counselors a lot because I'm like, yeah, I fixed that problem by myself. Like I kind of just like, yeah, no thanks on the counseling. But I see what you're saying is like people approach counselors when they have a problem. And if we are using astrology to stay at the front edge of the sword, we actually waylay most of our problems through the kind of attention to that. So sorry, Lucian.
Oh, sorry, it's still really choppy. What did you say?
Oh, it's just I'm just done with my thought.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, but I'm saying, Andrew, but I think for me, like when I hold the mirror, what I'm attempting to show the person is there is nothing wrong with you. There is no problem. And once you think there's a problem, you're fucked, because I had a teacher. He said you can never make a lie the truth, no matter how hard you try. And the thing that there's something wrong with you is a bold-faced lie.
Well, Lucian, do you think counseling is centered around things being wrong with people?
I mean, I think it's around people suffering and wanting to somehow suffer less, right? So, or another distinction I like to make is, right, their suffering is, there's meaningful suffering, and then there's meaningless suffering. I mean, that's another way astrology is really helpful, is it helps you understand also your problems, or the things that you view as problems.
Things you've been told or taught are problems. The things that were problems for your parents, I think.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because I don't believe the self has the ability to, like people say, I hate myself. I don't think the self has the ability to hate. And if we're talking about things that are wrong with us, it's not coming from us. It's things we've heard or we've picked up from other people that they didn't like or they thought was wrong with us.
Yeah, like if you put a problem child in the woods alone without any people, it's no longer a problem.
Exactly. And they'll figure it out, right? They'll be kicking it with the wolves, being like, they understand.
Well, that goes to like understanding why things, like for example, these things like the law of attraction or something like that, right? Like all over the place, whether it's self-help or spirituality or therapy, everybody wants to produce a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, right? So like, with the law of attraction, it's like, you picture what you want, you build up the emotions as if you already have it, you get in resonance with it, and it comes your way. If you have Jupiter like very well placed in your chart, and you have the Midas touch or something like that, that's going to resonate with you, and you're going to try it, and things are going to really work out in that way. But for somebody whose chart doesn't have that, it's not necessarily that one size fits all model isn't going to work so well. And therapy is full of this, right? This is what mental health looks like for everybody, right? This is what happiness looks like for everybody. But what we have with astrology and with a natal chart is we have this complex map of what that's going to mean for that person, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It does. I think in a sense that astrology, I think the way you just described it, or the way I heard you describe it, is a one size fits all, because it's right. It's your size. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
To me, I think if I'm oversimplifying it, I think the kind of suffering that you're referring to is when someone doesn't appreciate the fit of their chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's say we have to drop some really sensitive information on a client, like you have a super hard T-square or something like that. When does the skill of counseling come in with the bedside manner part of astrology? I mean, is that a counseling skill moment?
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
oh, I think so. I mean, I would say there's probably like two dangers, which is saying something, overly deterministic about something in someone's chart. Like, oh, you have this placement, so you're always going to struggle with money, or you're probably never going to get married or something like that. To me, I think being overly deterministic or predictive, that could potentially do damage, and depending on the person in front of you, if somebody's coming to you and they're really, really struggling, I mean, so that I would say that's a danger. But almost a bigger danger, I think, is letting your own anxiety or discomfort around speaking the truth, or saying something as it is, gets in the way of you, speaking the truth. I mean, this happens in counseling all the time. That's a huge part of, at least in the kind of psychoanalytic tradition of what the training's about, is how to not let your own unconscious anxieties and projections prevent you from saying what needs to be said, or listening properly, and likewise for the client, right?
Yeah, that's so good. But I don't think it's so much the anxiety about saying the truth. I think it's more about what you just said about listening correctly. I think there's certain anxiety that keeps us from perceiving the truth. And one example, and I think this runs roughshed throughout astrology, is that most of what we learn, this breaks my heart. Most of what we learn about astrology is from books, right? And I think that has to be part of it. But most of what I learn about astrology is not from books; it's from how it's showing up in people's lives. So,
right.
So for me to have an assumption of how someone is going to interact and play out a certain possibility, like I don't even try to do that. And the way that I do astrology, Andy, is it's not in a counseling context. So the idea of bedside manner, even that term, bedside manner, right now someone has to be so sick that they're in bed, right? So to me, everything is meaningful and everything is purposeful. So I'm trying to understand, what is this person's story and how can I put them in contact with that story? And it's their chart. So if I think something is gnarly, right, that's not helpful, right? Because I've noticed people that have gnarly charts like that, if you just speak to them plain without your anxiety, it's like, it's matter of fact. Things that would horrify us, for them, they're like, yeah, it's their chart. And so I honor that deep down inside, you know your chart better than I do. And my job is to just put you in contact with what you already know about your chart.
Sometimes Ricky actually changes my viewpoint, which I'm a tough cookie to crack. Sometimes I'm like, okay, sorry, Lucian, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, a couple of things. One thing I've noticed over the years, when I have, like, in my psychotherapy practice, I mean, now pretty much everybody is into astrology. So when I started off being a therapist, it was like I was still kind of had to keep it on the down low, and then over the years, right, like there's just been this explosion. So now everybody seems to be at least open to astrology. But when I look at my clients' charts, you know, I look at the synastry we have, it's like I can see. I mean, there's plenty of people who come to me, we're not a good fit. They don't stay very long. But the people who I really click with, they're coming to me because there's something in my chart, right? Or like, you know, like Ricky, what you're talking about, how you are with astrology clients or something. It's like people are resonating with something that I have to offer, right? And there's normally a couple of like my Aries Mercury Sun opposing my Saturn in Libra, like that's a huge one that I see there's synastry with, right? So people aren't necessarily coming to me for like a soft, warm blanket sort of therapist. They're actually coming because they want a therapist who's gonna like talk and tell them what they think and maybe even coach them in things, because that's part of who I am, you know.
And who can exercise restraint too. You know, I think
Right.
that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed your Saturn and your speaking style, like you're kind of calculated in what you say. Like I can feel your Mercury Saturn. That's kind of interesting.
Yes.
I don't want to rush that question anymore on that question. Okay, let's go on to the question of this is, so let's say we see someone with a hard transit approaching, and maybe Ricky would say that this is just part of their becoming, and there's nothing hard about a transit, or there's nothing. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Ricky, but I'm just saying.
Well, I wouldn't say there's nothing hard. The way I try to simplify it is hard aspects require more effort. You have to pay more. You know, say like you go to the easy aspect, you go to the store because you need something and it's on sale, so it's easy, right? You need something, you go, and it's like twice what you thought it was going to cost, and that like feeling of, oh, I'm gonna have to work some more hours. Oh, this is gonna turn into a fight with my wife. That's a hard, right? But you get over it, right? And it's like it's fine. It can even make you tougher. So I think of more about energy expenditure. It's gonna cost more. So, but to me, that's not the same as good or bad, because some people have a positive attitude to those kinds of experiences. Some people just they don't have confidence, and so they quit. So it depends on the person whether you're going to say it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say there's a high demand transit coming, like Saturn going over your moon or something like that. So like, could counselors help us? Like as astrologers, we can see the calculation. Like, okay, here's what your part of your becoming, and all this kind of stuff. But could counselors help us help have clients process through hard transits or high
again, process to me, that's counseling, and that's still for me, that's still a deficit mindset. To me, the one thing that I don't think we take into consideration enough as astrologers is the person's current environment. So if I see a taxing aspect, a taxing transit coming up, to me, the first thing I'm looking is there a channel in this person's life that could allow this to work out in a way that feels good to them? You know? And I remember, so my wife, before we were married, she's got Sun, Mercury, and Pisces in the second house. You know, and she's a second house person. And the Sun, Mercury, and Pisces are square Neptune in the 12th. And so I was talking to my wife and I said, could you ever imagine losing everything? And she said no. And I was like, uh-oh. We're in trouble, right? Because I'm trying to see what is someone's attitude to these potentials. And their attitude to me tells me everything I need to know. And if they're blind or they haven't thought of it or there's some resistance to it, then I'm like, okay, then I can say this is going to be hard.
Well, I mean, you're speaking my language. Like, I'm a toughen up cupcake kind of astrologer. Like, when people are like blaming their transits or stuff, I'm like, all right, why don't you toughen up and do some astrological remediation? Like you don't scare me with your can do attitude. I'm just like, thank you, God, for making Ricky Williams in this moment. But we'll see what I say later. But the point is, I get that, and so I guess I'm not a big, but I do think there are some aspects of personality that might really enjoy the depth of counseling. Like maybe a Moon Pluto conjunction might really enjoy counseling.
100%, 100%, yes. But
Yeah,
again, I think so. For me, in the way that I was taught, Pluto is related to the wound, and I think when someone is in the wound, I think they do need counseling. But I've also recognized that I'm not a counselor. So if someone is in the wound, it's like, don't come to me. I'm just going to make it worse.
I know. I'm thinking of a comedy episode called "Ricky Does Counseling." No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
it would be comedy because.
Well, that's what I mean. That's exactly like there's as many forms of astrology and counseling as there are birth charts. I mean, I hear that from people all the time. Like, how do you listen to people's problems all the time? Or like, I do a lot of couples counseling, and like people are like, holy fuck, how do you do that all day? And I mean, it can be stressful, but for the most part, I love it. I mean, I'm Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon with Jupiter. Like I'm voyeuristic. Like I love knowing about people's fucking dirty laundry, like, and I'm really comfortable, being in the wound with all of that stuff. Or people can tell me about their nightmarish, traumatic childhoods, and it doesn't like shake me to the core.
Well, I think because there's something about Pluto Scorpio energy that creates a safe place where if someone is sharing about it, they're not in the wound. When I say in the wound, it means they're behaving in ways that indicate that they are stuck in a wound.
Yeah.
Right. That's because my whole thing is my mode of operating is to find the wound and bring it to the surface.
Well,
some people, and that's the training. Some people can focus and function, and this is Scorpio energy. It's what it's built for. Can function and focus when that energy is present. And some people, it's more challenging because they haven't gotten to the other side of the wound yet. But this is part of the process. It's like squeezing the pimple, right? And then the little white thing sticks on the mirror, and it's like But it was uncomfortable for a little bit. And I think I grew up Christian, and this one theme that always haunted me as a kid. I had a difficult time reconciling it, but it was the angel of death. As if you didn't paint the lamb's blood on your door, they were gonna come in and kill your first child, and that was an angel that came from God. Whew, that's ruthless.
Have you seen real angels? They're like wheels of eyes looking at you. So Tammy Terrell's saying that people need connection and they look forward to counseling because of that. Do you think astrologers connect with people in the same way counselors do?
I don't think it's part of the job description in the same way that it is for psychotherapists and counselors, but I think anytime you're going to someone for help or guidance, you are also hoping for some type of connection, right? Or being understood, right? I mean, that's what people really want, or that's where when you get a good astrology reading and the astrologer is able to tell you something, without ever meeting you before, that is so deep and resonates with a part of you, you feel heard and understood. I mean, that's a profound gift of good astrology, I think. Yeah.
So I think I want to call this out real quick. Is we're talking about astrology and we're talking about how the chart allows us to appreciate that every individual is unique. So to make a sweeping claim that people do therapy for a connection, I'm not saying it's not true, but I think we lose the nuance and appreciation of each individual when we make sweeping claims like that. The other part, and Lucian, I think you did a beautiful job of explaining this, is that ultimately it is about a connection to yourself. And I think I come back to the idea of holding up a mirror. And not that connection isn't important, but we can feel this kind of thirst or neediness for connection or neediness for someone else to validate who we are. And it's the thing, if we had a truly intimate connection with ourselves, would we need a connection to other people? And again, I think if we're not coming from a place, I'm thinking if we're not.
I want to see your chart, man.
I'll show
Public, it's available publicly.
Yeah, it's on astro.com. And what I'm saying is a need, right? It's not a, when people get stuck in a point of view of need, they don't realize that they have a choice. And I think ultimate connection, and I say the biggest mistake people make in relationships is they choose the wrong people. And if you are crystal clear on who you are and you have a connection to yourself, it becomes impossible to choose the wrong people. And so I think as astrologers or counselors, at least my perspective, holding up the mirror to help people see how beautiful they are, to me, then connection becomes a whole nother story.
Yeah.
You know, Ricky, okay, so you're bringing the hold up the mirror to the person thing, and I kind of think sometimes like, okay, I'm sometimes a mega manifestation astrologer where I'm like, all right, let's talk about who you are and like get you even better. Like it's like sometimes I think I am like a NFL football coach astrologer. Sometimes it's like you're only half living to your potential. Like, so I think you can be like a super bossy astrologer too. Like I don't necessarily know. It depends on if you have that power with kind of vibe of like, let's go create your chart, or like, are you just like, get better? Or like, I think it really depends on the astrologer too, right?
Well, but I think also as an astrologer, part of our unique gift that we have to offer the world is our uniqueness. And one of the things that we all have in common is whether it's Aries or Mars, that they're prominent in our chart. And again, I'm completely biased because of my background and my upbringing, but at least from an astrological perspective, all of the planets are necessary. And even back in the Greek mythology, Romans did a little bit of better job, but I think currently most people, especially more people on the liberal side, are completely uncomfortable with Mars Aries energy. It's like and it's necessary for the whole, right? It's a color that we have to learn to paint with. But if there's so much wounding and trauma and all these things around it, it becomes a part of us that we don't have access to. And so, especially as Neptune is moving into Aries now, I think people who can hold this energy and keep their calm when everything around them is going to shit are going to be so valuable.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also, like I get frustrated with like this kind of and maybe I'll be canceled for saying this is I get really frustrated with the overuse of the word patriarchy as only being something bad and negative and sort of toxic and essentially, well, there's so many things. One, patriarchy means like archetype of the father, or like the mature masculine, which has a shadow side, but we also need things like order and power and command and all these things. And likewise, the feminine has a dark shadow, or these other things. So yes, I totally agree with you what you're saying about the sort of Mars, being thought of as a, antisocial force. Yeah.
What do you think about the term scorpiarchy?
Scorpiarchy.
I just made it up.
Yeah, I like it.
Because I have a lot of Scorpio, and I'm obviously in charge of this station. Okay, let's see. That was just me being kind of, impossible. Okay, so Any thoughts on that, Ricky? Sorry.
Well, I mean, what comes to mind is like, when I think of Scorpio, my highest expression is like me yelling at my wife one time. She was like blaming me for stuff, and I'm like, I'm not God. I said, own your shit. And to me, Scorpio, right? That's what they live by, is they own their shit.
Interesting. I think I'm on to one of the things that triggers you, Ricky. Like, I'm okay. I'm not. Can I talk about you on your own show?
Please, please.
I think one of the things that triggers you is not being talked over. And okay, so like let me go crazy here and say that a lot of your life in football, like you were physical, you were forced to be physical, but you're a Gemini. Like you're very mental. And I like, does it bother you when people talk over you?
When you say talk over, please say more.
Like I don't think you mind if you're trying to figure out like your communication cadence with somebody and they accidentally talk over you. Like that's what I mean. But like if somebody like just won't let you get your thought out, does that irritate you?
Not as much as they don't allow the thought to come in. That's what irritates me. It's like a certain lack of intellectual vulnerability.
Yeah, I always think of thoughts as pictures. Like in linguistics, we know this. Like words are actually codes to send over pictures. Like so, if somebody interrupts my picture, like me trying to get my picture out, I'm like, and then they're like arguing with my half picture. I'm like, you didn't let my picture form or come out. Like so, So I was just curious about that because.
But it's similar. It's similar to what you're saying. Is you're describing what it feels like, and I feel like I'm looking at what is actually kind of what's going on. Is that there's some kind of that what you're pointing out is it's attacking them, and so they have to put up some kind of defense in order to not let it in. It's like when Steve talks about Mercury, it's like a Mercury shadow. Is that if we talk, it means that we don't have to hear. And if we hear ourselves talking, then those are the thoughts that are going through our minds, and we're not allowing the thoughts of someone else to get in. And I think what triggers me for sure is when I perceive a lack of vulnerability. Because to me, if there's a lack of vulnerability, at least from my perspective, then I'm wasting my time here. Which yeah. So it's either like.
I feel like what I've seen with Geminis is like, if people aren't able to be as mentally flexible as they are, or entertain, if like certain ideas are off limits to someone, that seems to bother them.
Well, I think we can break down the statement, okay? Because again, this is my mind. Is when I hear astrologers say Geminis, and I do it too, and when I hear myself do it, it kind of makes me sad. It kind of breaks my heart, because when we understand the complexity of a chart, there's so much. Even if we just look at the aspects to Mercury, there's so much going into the specific kind of Gemini that's manifesting. I think we can pull out truths, but I just don't like losing the nuance. Losing the nuance of the story behind that. So what I can say is I think that the sun in a chart, and when we say that someone is a Gemini, we're usually talking about their sun sign, and this idea of how I think of the sun, and one way I think of the sun is how we make an impact. And so if the sun is in Gemini, someone makes an impact through their ideas, and if someone is not open to their ideas, it's not going to feel good to someone's sun. So, and I think that's a statement you can make across the board about all Geminis. But there's other things going on in the chart, and in my case, something that would aggravate this tendency is my Mercury is opposed Uranus and square Saturn. So what that means is early in life, probably a lot of experiences where it was difficult to get people to understand what I was trying to say. Because that kind of configuration for me, it means in order to have clarity, and if I don't have clarity, someone else is not going to have clarity. In order to have clarity about what's really going on for me, it's just going to take a while. And so if I'm looking at someone's chart, I would say, to answer a hard aspect question, Andrea, I would say don't expect people to understand what you say until you're like 40. Right?
Yeah, I can relate to that, in that, I've got Mercury and the sun in Aries opposite Saturn.
Yeah, you
And
got
when
it.
I was younger, I was shy at different points, but I went through a whole period of time where I was like, I was the person who interrupted and talked over everybody because my like enthusiasm for an idea or what I wanted to say was like, so fucking overpowering or something. But
Yeah.
now that I'm in middle age, I feel like that Saturn has kicked in a very different way. And I actually like it's much easier for me to listen, like let other people say what they need to say. I don't have that, like, I used to just have this like insane, like, I need to be able to say my thing, my idea.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah. So because I have life that other configuration, Uranus, Saturn opposing my Mercury, that there would be more opportunities for that tension to gather around people talking over me, that the words that I'm saying are threatening, et cetera, bringing up stuff, triggering things. And I'd say in my old age, I'm almost 50, is I've learned to appreciate that, because I think to me one of the most beautiful opportunities we have with the chart, or one way to think about it, is it helps us get a feel for ourselves. Because I think ultimately, if we truly develop a really nuanced feel for ourselves, we always know how to be in every situation.
Mhm.
And it's a form of doing the right thing. But the right thing is we learn when we look at a chart, right? Is about timing, right? The right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. The wrong thing at the right time, it tends to work. And I think when we develop a feel for ourselves, we tend to function in ways that work.
Mm.
Well, I have to say, as a Gemini rising, so I think Ricky and I overlay our Gemini pieces nicely together with mental flexibility. But I do think one of the things I've learned in high level show business is when you're working with hyper powerful individuals, like when they start talking, I just be quiet. Like
Mm.
I've learned, and I don't really fight with people. And it's because whenever they need to say, I'll just let them go on and then get their points out, and then I make my points after that. And I think I really enjoy very hard hitting people because I love their hard hitting points, and so I think communication calibration is extremely important in getting along. I don't know. I just was curious. Okay, Kimber has a question. She wants to hear how Lucian and Ricky handle clients choose to meet with them, but during the session aren't receptive, are offended, or not willing to reflect. Do you name it or forge on?
Mm.
Okay.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, own your shit. Okay, so for me, if that's happening, I'm looking in the mirror. What am I doing to trigger this in the person? It's not them, okay? And to me, I'm not saying those things are negative, because sometimes it's important for their defenses to come up so that they can see them. But if you react to them, then it just triggers the same pattern. So the advice my teacher gives: trust the symbols. Okay, trust the symbols. But I believe we're all evolving and we're all refining our astrological lens. So I think the astrologer's greatest gift is your ears. So if you notice they're pushing back, try to find where they're pushing back in the chart and reflect that back to them. Because it seems like your stuff is being triggered and coming up around their stuff. And I think that can be tricky sometimes.
I do have one
Yeah.
response to that. Is I do think Judith Hill one time sent me this thing. She's like, if you're going to be a good astrologer, you need to be like Judge Judy, and she was like making me watch episodes of Judge Judy, and I was like, oh my god, it's kind of like to be overly emotional about their response or not response is maybe not the greatest of an astrologer. I mean, sorry. Okay, Lucian, go ahead.
Oh, no. Finish what you were saying.
No, I just think there is some, because we are even presenting data in some ways, like to be overly emotional about their response is kind of like letting I don't know. I think it's an error on the side of an astrologer. Like a good astrologer is a mental animal because we're theoreticians, you know. So I don't know. I
I
like.
mean, I think it's a human thing, you know, to feel like, okay, they're paying you for your expertise or your time, and then they're telling you you're not getting it right. I mean, this happens in therapy all the time, right? And if it is a one-off astrology reading, you maybe don't have time to unpack what's going on, or that's probably a theme in their life and in their relationships is you know um, feeling like people are misattuned to them, aren't getting them right, those sorts of things. So I mean, I do think it's worth uh, asking them, like, well, can you tell me a little bit about why this isn't landing with you, or something like that. um, and they'll often probably tell you something that will then uh, either maybe they're totally resistant to um, the process, or maybe their resistance will even make the chart make even more sense. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super. I think that's super insightful. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
I,
yeah, I mean, what I'd add and repeat is, and again, sometimes I do this a lot, and the nature of how I do astrology is I'm always looking for what the person is saying, where that's coming from in the chart. So again, I don't. I trust the person more than I trust the astrology. And so I don't find myself in that situation very often, because to me, what the person is saying is what's accurate. It's my job to find out how that correlates to their astrology.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, so astrology, like you said, is very, I mean, I think it, like you said, theoretical, or right, like it is by nature a very kind of mental practice, right? I mean, or Ricky, you were talking about, the association with Uranus or Aquarius or something like that. It's like, when I got, I mean, I had sort of studied astrology, but I got hit by the astrology bug when Uranus was going over my son in Aries. And it was like, I felt like I had fucking Einstein hair or something. It was like I had been fucking electrocuted with astrology lightning. And it was hard to kind of like embody that sort of energy. But in any interaction, particularly, and this is where I do feel like astrology fits into a helping profession or a type of therapy, is like, we're like this much conscious and like this much unconscious. And when we come together, those dynamics get activated, both our unconscious, right, which includes all the stuff in our chart, and their unconscious, which includes all the stuff there. And I think, and not just astrology, but any kind of relationship becomes so much more exciting when you start thinking about how is the unconscious field like speaking, like we're all having a conscious conversation, but there's like massive shit going on underneath the surface, um
And I
yeah.
find the more I study astrology, the more I can perceive and track the things that are going on underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think of astrology as a map of, I say unconscious forces in the sense that a birth chart is the moment of birth, and at birth
Yeah.
we are completely unconscious, and we are starting to open up to consciousness. And I think as we progress, what we are becoming conscious of through all experiences, really, I think, are the potentials in the chart.
Yeah.
The Scorpiarchy approves of this conversation.
Yeah. That was definitely well, I keep thinking of, like evolutionary astrology too, right? Which which talks about Pluto as basically, it's not that it's unconscious, it's just not sun, right? Like the sun is so powerful, it obscures everything with its light, right? So it's this kind of paradox where it's shedding light on everything, but it's also it's you're right, during the day we can't see any of the planets or the stars. All we see is sunlight. Maybe the moon sometimes we get to see. And and where like Pluto is this idea of like, what your deep soul, or the life that happens to you while you're busy making other plans, right? As this kind of, yeah.
I think of Pluto. One way I think of Pluto is after we die. We look down and we're like, damn, I spent all those years worried about that or upset about that. And I think there are certain things that I wouldn't say impossible, that are very difficult to be conscious of because they're so deep. And I think of Pluto as the most spiritual planet. Is that we have a deep, deep, deep purpose. And it just requires intensity of experience to gain access to that, because the deeper purpose is way beyond a human life experience. That's why I think to truly get Pluto, you have to be willing to die for something, because where Pluto comes from, Pluto doesn't give a fuck about our physical body,
right? Well,
like
none of the
show. Sorry.
No, not. I think the transpersonal planets, right? That's why they're so awesome and so scary. Is like, they don't give a fuck about, all the sensory shit, right? Fear of death, how much food we're gonna have, how much happiness and pleasure, kind of those sorts of things. Going back to the hard aspect thing, I always think of, like Rudolf Steiner said, he also had Saturn opposing his sun. So this is a very like Saturn sun thing, I think. But he said, like, from the perspective of the soul, like we come to Earth for the hard stuff. Like that's where all the learning happens. Like all the other stuff is just kind of grace, right? Like, and, he talks about how like, our ego would never choose that, right? Like my ego would never choose to go through the challenging experiences of my biography, right? But there's another, like he calls it, the wiser one within, who is actually choosing that, because that that's the lesson, or that's the sort of curriculum,
You named it. That sounds to me like, again, when I'm talking to people, I'm looking at the chart and seeing, where does this statement come from? That is so Saturn opposing the sun.
Yeah.
Like beautifully put. Beautifully put.
Wow, this is super fun. I wish you could go on. That's both my sun and Pluto souls saying that. Okay, but Lucian, I want to know, where can people find you if they want to work with you, or where are you at?
I have a website, not a very good one. It's just my name, lucianschloss.com. Sometimes I post on Substack, at Movements of the Soul, and I'm on social media and stuff, but not super active with that. But they can reach out to me. Okay. Can I add one final note? Because I do. This was one thing I wanted to just say is, the thing to watch out for people seeking astrology readings is the projection of like the wizard or the magician, right? Like most people are coming and they're projecting this fantasy of like, you have fucking magical powers, and you can kind of make it all go away or something like that. So just to be mindful of that.
Of how powerful you really are. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
About how magical your chart is.
if you want to go to a wizard magician, go to Andrea Gertz, and she'll.
Oh, no.
So I can tie that to what I've been saying about holding up the mirror, and
Yeah.
I often think about this. It's a magic mirror, and in the story of Snow White, it was a magic mirror that told her the truth that she wasn't ready to see, and it kind of drove her crazy. But if someone has a desire to see themselves clearly, that means on deeper levels than just the physical. Then I think that's what, in my opinion, that's what someone should be looking for from an astrological
Totally
session. Yeah.
Well, and listen, we do live in a magical cosmos, but where it's everywhere. It's not just located in the magical astrologer. Yeah.
I love your point, Lucian. We're gonna have you back on a hour for how to be more magical as an astrologer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Lucian.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
This was really fun.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
Okay.